like to continue on our understanding of the difference in the chicken specifically we're talking about now in the market. We mentioned at the very beginning that there's a few kinds of labels. One of them would be Rabbanut, another is Bahadrin, and the other is Halak. So Halak, none of them, as I pointed out at the beginning, mean what they sound like. Mahadrin, not talking about an esrog here, and Halak, we're not necessarily talking about checking lungs. But those are the words that are used. And I want to speak specifically today for a minute, explain one of the issues of chumras in chickens. You know, a chicken has to be healthy in order to shechted and eat it. The pasuk says, a basar basada treifa, that if you find an animal in the field and it's injured or it's dead, you don't eat it. Like before there was even a matan Torah, it says that in Shmos. But basar basada treifa, you don't eat it. And you know, every shochet is called a shochet ubodek. So we always stress the shochet part. I'm a shochet. But if you see abbreviated, it's always shuv, right? Shochet uboidek. The boidek part, the training for that is much more than the training for something like a moil. You know, like with 10 minutes training, anybody can do a bris milah. But you know, if God forbid something goes wrong, or even the priya, and you know, like the shechita is in a way, I mean, you have to be an expert, but in a way that's the least of it. Bodek is to make sure that the animal's not a treifa. A treifa means, in our halacha, that not only will it die if it's left to its own devices, but it is injured. It is injured in a clear way. So that's called a treifa, and the Gemara in Chulin has lists and lists of different treifas that the bodek, who is the shochet, should look for. And it's a real expertise. You really need a shimush. Most of these things we look for in animals, not in chickens. And the reason for that is very simply that the Shulchan Aruch is different between the two, because animals get much more wear and tear. I mean, consider the fact that when an animal, a cow, crouches and gets up, so it's lifting up a ton. A ton and a half, you know, that's some pretty heavy wear and tear on the knees over there. Hashem made everything so beautifully and so perfectly, but it's more likely that it can happen, an injury can happen. A chicken is not getting up and getting down, and not, it's just hopping around, you know. So there's less bedikas that a shochet or a bodek has to do to make sure. That's the principle of the Shulchan Aruch. You do less bedikas on a chicken than you do on an animal. One of the things that you check on an animal, the big siman in Shulchan Aruch, is this is a whole complicated thing, but I just want to explain it in a minute, is the Tzomet HaGidim. Tzomet HaGidim, everyone knows who lives in Israel what a tzomet is, like where there's a lot of traffic coming in from all different sides. That's called a tzomet, intersection. So in the knee, there is an intersection of tzomet, of gidin, of different muscles that go through the knee, mostly muscles, and those are very, very important muscles, both in a cow and in a chicken and in a person. There's altogether what Chazal counted 16 major muscles that go through the knee. From, you know where the knee of a chicken is? I mean, everyone knows where the knee of a chicken is, but when you buy a chicken, and the drumstick, so the end part of the drumstick, that's the knee, yeah? After that comes feet. So the feet, these days, I think because it's a law of bacteria, is pretty much cut off and thrown away, not salted. They don't do anything with it. I seem to remember as a child that people made soup out of that, but now I don't think that they sell the feet of the chicken, so that's out of the cheshbon. So as far as we know, you know, we the consumer, the chicken starts at the pulka. It doesn't. There are feet under. There were feet under there, but that joint right there, the part where you hold the chicken, that's the Tzomet HaGidim. Right there is where that's the knee. That's the knee of the chicken. And, you know, like if a person stands on their toes like this, so it seems like a pretty simple act, but you are using 10 different muscles to stand up on your toes. Not because you have 10 toes, because there's 10 different muscles that go through from the toes to the ankle to the knee, 10. This I'm taking from Chazal. I'm not saying this from a biology book. So if you're using 10 major muscles doing that, so an animal or a chicken is using those same muscles, but there are, some say 16, some say 17. So if you're gonna check and they get relatively easily damaged. So if you would see, just an example, you would see a cow limping, that's treif. What does it mean that a cow is limping? It means that one of those muscles is not working correctly, and therefore it doesn't have complete control of the treif. That's a treif animal. Same, the chicken's hard to see limping. Look, you don't see a chicken limping, but what a chicken does is jumps, and if it's not jumping properly and you have a really good eye, you'll know, oh, that chicken might be a treif, or that batch of chicken might be a treif, or they threw the chicken, they kicked the chicken and dropped it in a fula, they dropped it off a truck. We'll talk about that also, but those are things that are bad. Now, those are things that would make it into a treifa. If you go to a Shechted, which I have done, and you watch where they do a badika of the shririn, of the muscles that go through the knee, so it's actually quite cool because what happens is that this is how you check. You only have to check the rive. So the rive is 9 out of the 16, right? So you just check 9 of these muscles. You take the muscles, you probably see them even in your chickens. It's like a white string. It's flat. Those are usually flat. Those are the muscles. One of the things that the Shechted does is he opens it up with a knife. He puts his finger under that muscle. The chicken's dead, right? He puts his finger under the muscle, picks up the muscle, the finger goes up like that. Obviously. And this muscle goes like that, so you can watch a chicken. If that doesn't happen, so then you've got a treif chicken, because it means to say that the muscles somewhere were damaged. Then if you go deeper into it, you'll check it. You'll even count. It's even missing the muscles. Why is it missing the muscles? Because once a muscle breaks, boom, it's somewhere in there. And the fun thing is to go look for the muscle. What happened to the muscle? But in the meantime, it's like an elastic band. It's like a rubber band, and it goes flying up. This is a treifa. Okay, halacha l'maisa. The Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah, does not tell us anywhere that you have to check a chicken for Tzomet HaGidim. It does not get the amount of abuse that the muscles, the amount of wear and tear, the longevity of a cow. Cow can walk around for a long time, a chicken for a month or two. It doesn't have the longevity to be able to damage the muscles. So the Shulchan Aruch, the Rabbis tell us you don't have to check chickens for this. So we're good to go. Why am I talking about it? Because the poskim, more recent poskim, in Chas Yitzchak, Shevet Levi, the more recent poskim said that, but that's talking about a chicken in the old days, free-form chickens. They ran around, they were healthy. Now they're all being crowded into cages and living under substandard conditions and given hormones here in Israel to fatten them up, so that it's not natural for the legs to be able to hold this amount of things. So many poskim said that these days you have to check. This is but it's not in addition to what it says in the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah. The Ramah even says, by the way, that you should not check a chicken's Tzomet HaGidim, because he says that what happens is you take a knife and you should I bring a piece of chicken here and demonstrate? You take it rather not. You take a knife and you open it up. Okay, you check the Tzomet HaGidim. Now you have to salt it. And what happens is when you do the malicha, now anything that's open, any cavity, you've got to get the salt all the way in there, and they don't do it because they just spray it out with like a hose, the salt. So all of a sudden you've lost your malicha. Also, it slows down the process double. I mean, nobody checks every chicken. Nobody. There's no shlachtos that checks it, maybe the old days. But what they do is, I'll give you the quick breakdown. It was a sayib that if the chicken says halak on it, halak, so that means they check 1 in every 10. They check the Tzomet HaGidim. If the chicken says that it's mahadrin, so that means they check that shipment. If the chicken says kosher, rabbanut kosher, that means they spot check, it could be from a couple of shipments. Every once in a while, a mashgiach will come in and check it. In the case of plain kosher, plain rabbanut, if you will, they don't check it with a knife and check it. But they have mumchim that know how to look at the leg and test it and check for inflammation and things like that, and see whether there's a possibility of any danger. So it is for this reason, I believe, that a halak chicken, which is, I think, badatzei de charedes chicken, costs double from a Rabbanut chicken on the other end, double. And it makes sense that it should cost double because there's a lot of work. It's very, very labor intensive to do this. Whether you should spend double or not, so ask your local Orthodox rabbi.